Hi, I'm Simon from 2Ticks. In the last video, I talked about why crypto is a really hard way to make money. And a lot of that comes down to the environment people step into. You know, the pressure, the noise, and the way money changes how we all behave. What I want to do here is zoom in on just one part of that environment, because that's where I've seen the most damage over my time in the trade. That part is risk. I don't mean in a technical sense or anyway that's theoretical or whatever. I mean how risk affects people and how they experience it day to day. You see, people don't realise they're getting risk wrong, not in the moment and while it's happening. They realise it afterwards, when it's too late to change anything. And when people talk about risk, it usually comes up as percentages, probabilities, or win rates, or whatever other abstract way they have to frame it. But the problems I see most often just don't start there. They start with learned behaviour. A lot of people start at the trade size they wish worked rather than the size that lets them learn in the beginning. And that makes every move feel important. Every loss feels personal. And once that trade size gets too big, it becomes very hard to think clearly. Those losses tend to get framed as something that'll sort itself out over time, maybe. But if nobody's decided how much drawdown's acceptable, that quietly grows into something that becomes just much harder to deal with. And that's usually when the pressure starts to creep in harder and harder. Now, the pattern I see doing the most damage is chasing losses. It rarely feels dramatic in that moment. And most of the time, it feels like just trying to fix something, like just a detail or an adjustment. But what happens is the size gets nudged up. Rules get softened, time frames get stretched out further and further. And then without really noticing, the goal changes. Because it stops being about making good, thought out decisions and choices, and it becomes about getting back to where you were in the beginning. And right at that point, risk really isn't about the market anymore. It's all about emotion. Now that's where tools and bots can just quietly amplify the problem. They don't hesitate and they don't feel uncomfortable. If risk rules start drifting, execution just keeps going. Those trades will happen. And from the outside, that can look like being reckless. And in reality, it's how hard it is to stay disciplined when money and emotion mix together. When people ask me what good risk management looks like, they mostly expect me to say something clever or well thought out, I suppose. In practice, it tends to be really, really simple. You see, good risk lets you sleep. It lets you step away from the computer. It keeps your losses small enough that you don't feel the urge to need to fix them right now. See, being wrong's not unusual, but being too big with trade sizes makes being wrong unbearable. And one of the most underrated skills in crypto is knowing when to pause. Sometimes the most disciplined decision is doing nothing at all. And that way of thinking is why we've always focused so much on limits, breaks, and those really very obvious stop buttons. Staying disciplined over time is harder than most people expect. People don't always get wiped out because they don't understand the markets. They can get wiped out because emotion slowly changes the rules and they just don't notice it's happening. This channel partly exists to help slow that process down. We're here to talk honestly about how this really works and to help people avoid the traps that catch most of us out at some point. Next time I want to talk about trade starting size and why that single decision causes more stress than almost anything else. And thanks very much for watching. I hope to see you on the next one. Bye for now.